Hey, welcome to the Overshare Pamphlet. My name is Rob and I'm the host of this one-man show coming to you every Monday, 6 a.m. UK time. And today we're back into book reviews. And I'm very pleased to talk about this one because I'm still not entirely sure how I feel about it. And I think it's a good place to be in a way because it testifies sort of why you should primarily read this book, basically, because it is a very divisive book and it is a very hot book at the moment. Like, everyone is sort of really onto it. I think it came out just a couple of months ago, so it's pretty fresh, and I actually have read it like a month ago or something like that, but it took me a while to get to this because this was a read that is part of the book club that I'm part of, but also, so I really wanted to have a discussion with other people first, which happened just a couple of days ago, but also I really wanted to think over about so many different things, and my opinion keeps on sort of shifting a bit between whether I actually like this book or not. I'm still not entirely sure where I land specifically. And it was good to talk to other people about it, to be honest. But yes, I actually was also thinking, don't hold me to it though, that since my book club is already on his fourth book and we've read quite a few interesting novels, that I could make almost a monthly episode dedicated to the book that I've read with the book club, post discussion, because whether I like them or not, we've had a couple of clunkers, a couple of very good books. I think it's still good to talk about them, and maybe you guys could find it interesting and some inspiration on what to read next if you're already read it, to hear my thoughts, hear other people's thoughts, and just think it over. We'll see. I mean, again, this is my review / general thoughts about it. It's my opinion, of course, so if you don't agree with it, that's totally fair. It's just super fine, but just know that this is my take on it, my current opinion, my neutral, I'm trying to see both sides of where the book lacks and where the book really succeeds. But yes, if you have different interpretations to what I have, or different ideas about the book, please feel free to leave them in the comments respectfully, because I will be deleting any comments. But yes, this is sort of, I'm going to try and give, at the beginning, a bit of a spoiler-free summary of the book, and then we'll get into spoilers into, my thoughts and the themes and all that. But yeah, this book, I haven't even said what it is. It's called Yesteryear by Caro Burke. And this is her first novel, so this is the debut novel from this author, which is so exciting because, regardless of what it is, regardless of how you receive the book or not, I think, or regardless of how I have received it as well, I think the good takeaway from all this is that this author has had at least some incredible talent in writing this one. There's definitely glimmers of super talent in here. I'm very excited to see what she's gonna write next, and what's the next story that she's gonna tell, or if she's gonna make a sequel to this, or if not, and where she's gonna take us next. I'm very excited because there's definitely a lot here that I'm really impressed by. So, amazing. So, what is this book about? This book is about, basically, in I guess short form, it's about a Tradwife influencer who becomes super famous thanks to a farm that she built with her husband's money, technically, called Yesteryear Ranch, which is why the book is called Yesteryear. But also there's another reason why it's called that, and we'll get into it in 2 seconds, basically. Book starts with the main character, Natalie. She is, when we start off in the book, she already is at the peak of her success when suddenly she receives an email from her assistant quitting the job that she was having at her ranch, assistant to her social media platform. And this gives us already a sort of a hint about a mysterious indication, basically, of something wrong happening at the farm, at the ranch, and that something happens specifically between this assistant, Natalie, and also her husband, and that Natalie is also not a good person, or like is not as good as she claims to be on social media, basically. And so after that email, Natalie seems to be transported to the past, to the 1800s, and the book moves forward with 2 storylines from then on, which is basically like chapters are basically split into 2 different storylines. The one part of it is just Natalie in this 1800s, and every other chapter is instead about her backstory and how she got to be so famous online and everything else. So the chapters alternate in this apparent other world and her backstory. So basically, we just culminate at the end with the big reveal. The 2 storylines basically clash at the end, and they reveal what happened to actually Natalie, like what if she's actually in the 1800s or not, and like yada yada yada. So this is like the short story, and now we're gonna get into spoilers, because I cannot not talk about this without without spoiling the movie. The movie, soon to be movie, by the way, because the rights for the book have been, well, actually not. It's not for the book, but it's the rights to, well, actually I don't know if she bought the rights or not, but basically there's going to be a movie. What's her name? Oh my gosh, I'm already forgetting her name. Devil Wears Prada. Oh my god, Anne Hathaway. Anne Hathaway is going to be the one producing this movie based on the book. So yeah, basically through the backstory of Natalie, we basically learn that she's always been a very difficult person to begin with. She's always been quite different from other women, and she's always been quite uninterested in what the girls of her time are into. Deeply judgmental of any other girl in her university, specifically, like even when she leaves her small town, she goes to uni and she has a chance there to meet other people and open her horizons. She instead seems to be caving even more into her own ideology and her ideas about other women, and this sort of inner hatred towards other women just ramps up significantly from the moment that she steps into university, specifically when she meets her roommate, who is quite different from her, like very different from her, and her friends are like very different from Natalie in terms of ideas and everything else. And there is some form of also soft bullying there, actually maybe more covert. It's not really that it's quite clear that these girls are also not really trying their best to integrate Natalie into her group. But Natalie is also, to be fair to the girls, not really willing to participate in anything that they do, and their friendship also basically ends up very quickly in this dorm room, because Natalie gets into an argument, and which then turns into almost a physical fight and everything else, and she gets moved to a different dorm room, and she's finally alone where she always wanted to be. But basically, this is sort of a pattern that repeats itself constantly in the book. Like Natalie, the more she grows, the more resentful she becomes of other women, and the more isolated she becomes as well. And yeah, so but the big difference, I guess, when she first joins the university, is that she has a lot of ideas in mind and a lot of things that she wants to do and wants to achieve and wants to complete her degree and everything else. But all these ideas very quickly, throughout the years in university, fall away, and she just gets even more imprisoned by her own traditional ideas, and specifically, well, on the one hand, of course, she's sort of separated from the social life on campus, but also the biggest problem here is when she meets her soon-to-be husband, Caleb, who is the youngest son, I believe, of this very wealthy and influential political family. His dad is a politician, very influential, who will, later on run for president also in the book. But yeah, so when she meets Caleb during her years in college, she suddenly becomes infatuated with the idea of, an old school life, rejecting modernity, embracing this very traditional religious ideology as well, about a traditional family and being provided by a man and everything else. So she thinks that through him, when she understands how rich this guy is, that she can achieve all that initially she had to achieve by herself. She now thinks that, she doesn't have to like complete university and work herself and everything else, and it can all be provided by this man. And so she drops university, and she after a few dates with this guy, she very quickly moves forward and is not too far off from getting married. She gets married to this guy quite quickly, to be honest. So yeah, and so just like that, she throws away all of her projects that she had to begin with when she moved to university. She just eventually gives up on her course. She doesn't graduate, so that's all that. And so she meets his family and everything else, but soon enough she however discovers that the man she married is not the idealized masculine dominant man, let's just say, who will provide for her, and is not the man who is actually it's not the dream that she wished to achieve through him was not going to be that easy to get to, basically. Let's just say, as it turns out, his parents had been trying for years to find a way to settle Caleb into any sort of career, to be honest, that could at least keep him, not make him become basically a disgrace to his family, because every other sibling apparently is already settled and everything else, and they have different jobs and all that. Caleb is actually quite the passive man instead, not sure about anything in his life, very insecure, and not at all a man made to build a family, and let alone to provide for his wife. So Natalie finds sort of herself trapped into this marriage that, to be fair, she chose herself. She jumped herself in. She jumps into quite willingly, and even despite his mother's warnings and his sisters and everything else, is quite the she doesn't want to listen to any of these, and she basically has sort of already a mental breakdown multiple times in this book, but she does not wish to give up to prove, and also to basically she still wants to prove to everyone else, especially the other women in her life, that her lifestyle and her ideology is still worthy, and she doesn't want to prove them right. So she forcefully tries to make this work in every possible way. So she agrees with his father, with Caleb's father, to open a farm. They just through his dad's money, basically they built this they renovate, I guess, like this farm, this ranch, and there it goes. Like she gets in this ranch. She calls it Yesteryear Ranch. The ranch, by the way, is of course under Caleb's name, and she forces it so much that practically she ends up ruining also her relationship with him, but also with the soon to be children. Because, by the way, even their sex life sucks. They do not seem to be attracted physically to each other whatsoever. She literally has to force the man to give her kids, and surprise, surprise, she turns out to be a horrible mother too. So, yeah, I mean, she basically gets this incredible. She gets to live in this incredible farm, very, very, very big one. She gets the money lent from his dad, and it's pretty clear that while Caleb has agreed to do this, and he wants to be part of it, he's not really ready to run a farm. There's not going to be any proper revenue coming from this farm, and so in a split decision, she sort of posts a photo of him and his firstborn daughter, and with that the whole thing starts, because she realizes very quickly that even though she knows deep down that her life is shit, basically, and nothing is working out the way she thinks should work out, from the outside, she still looks incredibly well positioned, and I think very in a very enviable position from specifically a lot of women, women's perspective. And so she understands that if she can still in a way like hide and brush under the rug all of the issues that are around herself that she created and that she's in, and if she can portray a picture perfect family and a lifestyle that is like, you know, sort of idealized by many people, she would be able to get a lot of traction, a lot of attention on the internet, specifically from jealous women. So she understands very well that she wants this women's attention, basically. So I'm very much, surprised that, it's quite ironic in a way, because, like, all she wants is to, like, be proven right, but, like, she actually caters so much to all these envious women, and, it makes sense, I guess, yeah. But anyway, so, from then on, she builds this social media platform that she has, and, like, she becomes very famous pretty quickly, to be honest, and, she attracts so much information and so much attention, and in the meantime she also keeps on churning out fucking babies, basically, because she keeps on having new babies. I think she gets to the point where she has almost 6. So it gets to a point where, like, she becomes so engrossed in this whole online persona, I guess, basically, that she completely neglects her children, she completely neglects her marriage, and behind the scenes, basically, she hires nannies, she hires farm workers to work on the farm, but what she posts specifically on social media is just making it seem like she and her family are the only ones living and working on this place. And so she sort of, like, sells a lie to thousands of followers, basically. But, in a way, also, this is her fatal mistake, because of this, her entire family's stability and just in general her marriage and everything else rests on her shoulders, and her page specifically. So she understands it very, very well, to be honest, because by the same token, she becomes even more suspicious of the external world. She becomes even more suspicious of any other person, specifically other women or any of her followers. So even when she gets out and interacts with people who are outside of the farm, she is extremely weird, extremely just unpleasant, and just a weird person, like, just very, very mean to everyone. She has horrible thoughts about every single person she meets, including eventually also her mom and her sister. It becomes such a, like, unlikable person. I mean, she was already unlikable to begin with, to be honest, but she becomes even more unlikable because she completely disrespects her family, her, mom and her sister, especially when they, confide in her. She just judges them, like, she scrutinizes them so much and says some horrible words to both of them. Just, she completely destroys her safety net, I guess, also a social safety net in that sense. And so, she becomes, by the day, even more obsessed with the, keeping everything under wraps, and, like, not being super overt about her life, and she wants to match her online life with her real life, which turns out to be quite difficult, because the person she sells online is not her by a mile, basically. That's completely not her. But it gets to a point where, basically, the social media platform becomes so massive that it's impossible for her to, like, actually manage it by herself, and so she hires this assistant, who, at first, when she first interviews her, is quite, she's quite dubious about her, because she doesn't look like the type of person who would be interested in this type of, like, ideology, and, like, this type of, like, whatever her farm represents online, of a Tradwife, and everything else. But she does have incredible skills, and so then she therefore gets hired. But it's very clear for the readers, at least, I would say, but I guess even for her eventually it becomes clearer. I don't know how she didn't read this into it. She didn't read into it from the beginning, but whatever. This girl is here to actually expose Natalie and her family, and so she collects evidence, takes pictures, becomes close with the children, and she even has a fling with her husband. So she completely destroys her marriage as well. She has sex with her husband, and then turns it into, like, him sexually assaulting her, and also there's an altercation between her and Natalie at a certain point that becomes sort of unclear in the book of whether it has a sexual nature or not, and if it was, actual violence or if it was actually consensual, whatever. But she spins it in court to be, she says that she was sexually assaulted by Natalie as well. And so, when Natalie basically, finds out that she fired herself and she went to court and everything else, her whole thing crumbles. And what's even worse is that in the meantime, because Caleb's father is running for president, his run for presidency becomes also super affected by this, and she also eventually gets dropped by his family too, by Caleb's family as well. And so we get to this, like, to her being completely abandoned by everyone, and her whole social media platform crumbling before her eyes. And so the only two people left, I guess, are the two of them, and the whole thing just becomes basically like, they decided to just like detach themselves from the entire world and to just completely hide from everyone and just delete everything basically. And so she isolates herself in this farm that is now falling apart. So in the meantime, in the past, I guess, like in the 1800s, the story at the beginning is not that interesting because it's sort of like a very repetitive story, but it's supposed to be repetitive because it's supposed to like represent, what an actual tradwife used to do back in the days, which is quite interesting in the sense of a parallel. So, she wakes up, she finds herself in this world that she doesn't really recognize, and living with this man who kind of looks like her husband, but he's not really him, and with children that she doesn't recognize. They sort of look like her children, but they don't, and it seems like she's in the 1800s, like, there's no technology, nothing, like she's completely cut off from the world. She starts to escape multiple times, gets injured, severely injured multiple times, but basically, nothing really crazy happens until towards the end, basically. When she finally manages to actually get out of the farm, she reaches this house which is not too far away from it, and she sort of finds out that she is not in 1800s, she's in the current world, and she's just been drugged by her firstborn and by people there, her other children, because they all grew up to resent her. And so ever since she got off social media and everything else, basically her farm became just an old, like it wasn't restructured or anything else. It was just like falling apart, and it seemed like she was in 1800, but she was just under drugs or like under medicinal effects basically. So this is the big twist basically in the book, and in a way, then when she sort of realizes that her oldest daughter, who she resented even when she was raising her, she didn't like her or whatever, she thought it was horrible to be a mother and all that. Clementine, basically, that's the name of the oldest daughter. She had basically known about all of this, and she came to rescue the children, and they basically frame her for child abuse and put her in prison. Well, not frame her, but she did commit child abuse, but they put her in prison, and that's it. And so then to end the book, there's a big fast forward where she's still in prison. She gets interviewed by her dorm flatmate, dorm room, a friend, first friend from the dorm that she then eventually had a fight with and everything else, who now is inside like a news anchor or whatever. But even then, when after all this time, when she has the opportunity to tell her story or whatever, she still is sort of like a psychotic person basically. And it's crazy, basically. Like, it ends like that, and it's sort of like a, recounting this, like, it sounds like a very anticlimactic story, but reading it was actually so, engaging and so interesting. I did feel when I first read the book that the twist wasn't as good as it could have been. I felt a bit, let down by it, because I think we were building up to something so interesting and so revelatory about her, but it wasn't that. And she was, taken advantage of in a way. But yeah, so that's the story. What did I think about the book overall? So when I first read the book, I was very torn. I did like the writing quite a lot, and I still do it. I still think the writing is actually the best part about the entire book. Like, the book is written so well. There are so many cliffhangers at the end of each chapter that keeps you wanting to read more. And so even if it's 400 pages, I actually devoured the book in like a week, and that was quite, a good testament of like a good, well written book. But I did feel, again, as I said, like the twist was fell a bit flat. There were so many plot holes, I think, that I couldn't really explain, like what happened to her mother, her sister. No one dared to check in on her, like, for 10 years. She's been on drugs, like, in this farm. No one dared to check in. Also, if there was child abuse, why did no one enter sooner, like arrest her sooner? Also, after she was charged, or like she was, she had a trial, whatever, why was she not put in prison and all that immediately? So many questions. I just don't understand that, and I still to this day don't understand that. So those to me are like the things that are a bit like, yeah, the twist is fine. Like, I in concept, I guess, like the twist makes sense. Also, I don't know how else they would have reconciled the two storylines in a way, and that makes sense. But I just feel like they left so many things unfinished and so many things unexplained, and that was sort of, that is sort of still a sentiment that I am not moving away from in a way. I still think there are some weak points in the story. Like, despite it being written super well, and the build up was actually pretty good, the build up to like the final twist, I still don't really understand how we got to that, basically. But yeah, so those were like my thoughts on that. But I did think, I do think like the parts that of my opinion have changed quite a lot are about the themes and like what the book is trying to say, I guess. So, my understanding, I guess, from this is that the themes on this book are like very interlinked in a way. Like, they all make sense. Like, there's a theme of like, feminism, of course, and like marriage, traditional ideologies, Tradwives, a big commentary, of course, on social media influencers, specifically, the more traditional ones, but also a lot about like religion, because specifically when she gets to this 1800s thing, whatever, like storyline, she, for the most part, she has a religious psychosis, and she thinks she's actually being tested by God. Which is actually hilarious. And so many things that happen to her in the book are actually, low-key funny. Like, they actually are funny. They're, quite extreme in terms of satirical commentary. So I found myself questioning throughout the entire book, like, are we thinking about, is this like a comment? Is this supposed to be like commentary on social media influencer Tradwives, or is it supposed to be a satire? Is it supposed to be like a satirical story to sort of poke fun at the status of social media at the moment, and like how people are also left adrift in a constantly like evolving society and ideologies as well. It seems to me to this day, I'm not entirely sure the book finds a good footing on like what it wants to be, if that makes any sense. At times it seems to be very serious, at times it seems to be very hysterically funny, because it's like, so out of the world, the story, that makes you, laugh for how ridiculous it is. And so, that, I guess, to me confuses the point of the book. Like, is there supposed to be a point of the book, or is it just supposed to be like a story that we read for the laughs? So, in other words, like, is this supposed to teach us something as a commentary, or is this supposed to be just like a satirical story that we read to learn, basically, that we just exacerbate basically how extreme things can be and everything else, like just make fun of a stereotypical character. I'm not entirely sure, and I'm not entirely sure like the book wants to be that, wants to like find a footing, necessarily wants to be a bit of leaving it up to interpretation how the reader reads it. But my point is, if you have to write a book just to write a book with no intention behind it, then what's the point in publishing something that is, lacks focus and lacks a direction and lacks a sentiment behind it? It seems to me at times that the book, if the book wanted to be a full satirical novel, I think sometimes you should have gone for more of a bite and more of more extreme and more funny and more hysterical throughout the book. Instead, sometimes it becomes like a bit of dubious, basically, exercise of whether we are seeing this character spiral so much for no reason, or whether at the end we're promised that she's gonna have a change of heart, or at least show some complexity in her character. Instead, we get this character who's very flat in terms of what she believes in. She's clearly not well mentally. She's clearly an unwell person who's by her own volition as well ostracized, but also I guess partially by the world around her. But in a way, it's she's ostracized by the rest of the world. She hates women so much she doesn't even really understand why, and she doesn't care to understand why. She just is judgmental until the end. So you just follow these characters, frankly quite unlikable. And I guess that is the point, in a way, because if it's a satirical novel, you should follow something that is quite extreme, right? But again, it's not entirely clear to me throughout the book that that's what he wants to be. There's so many things thrown at you, and I think in a way it's a great conversation starter in a way. This is a perfect book for a book club because it's so divisive. Some of my friends really liked it. Some of my friends, me specifically, I was not completely on board with it, I guess. But I do still think it's a very good book. It's a very good concept. It's a very well written book, and I think it's actually very smart the way it's done. I just feel like there's some parts of it that don't necessarily work as well. They could have done better, could have been honed a bit better, could have had more focus on the direction of the book, and this would have made it a 10 out of 10 experience. But again, this is also still a sign of an incredible book because the amount of conversations that are starting from this are incredible. But my main point, I guess, that I sort of came up with at the book club as well was that it's fun to try to it's interesting to try and put out there a lot of things at the same time, and to take away from what you want from a book. But then if a book shouldn't be just simply a conversation starter, it should also have the conversation in the book. You cannot just throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks, and then that's gonna be a conversation starter. The book needs to have some form of conversation in it. You should have the conversation with the book as well. It shouldn't be just a book that that you chat with other people and you try together to come up with what it is about, and then eventually end up not finding a common ground, basically because of how extensive the topics are. I think the book should have been more honed in that part. It should have had more of a focus, and it should have been more cohesive. Maybe leave out some of the many different moving parts of it, and maybe also try and give a bit more of a complexity to the character itself, because at the end of the day, the character starts complex because she's so outlandish and so different from many average people, but then she quickly becomes very flat to me because she is very predictable in what she does. She doesn't, there's no character development whatsoever in the story. She is a person who spirals down and down and down and down and down and down and down again. And this is sort of the same reason why I didn't really like Marty Supreme, because it's a very similar story. This guy never learns anything in the course of his story, and you follow him for such a long time just to end up hating him so much in the end. Anyway, so it's the same thing with this. If you want to make a satirical novel, then it doesn't need to be, I think, this 400 pages long, because eventually I personally got quite over the character in a way. I was yeah, of course you would do that. Of course she's fucking insane. You got the point across, at least in the sense of she's an insane person. We got it. So then therefore it turns into you're sort of punching down on the character as a writer, which is not something that you shouldn't really want to do, I guess. That's my thing. And I've seen some commentaries online that are also sort of referring to this, and how in a way this book is written as a first wave feminism that doesn't really try to understand women who are attracted by traditional ideologies. Like, instead here is just like written off as an extreme insane person, you know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, I can imagine why this book is getting, like, you know, a lot of mixed reviews, because in a way it's a very adventurous book in the way, you know, portrays certain things, but maybe because, you know, there hasn't been enough balance and enough care about certain topics and certain portrayals, it can be quite harsh for some people to read. So yeah, I guess these are my thoughts, very contrasting thoughts. I still think, again, I want to highlight again that the writing was incredible, the story, the concept, everything was just actually very genius, and it's also very fun to read a book about something that is actually quite modern, about, like, you know, traditional influencers and, like, Tradwives and whatever is going on. And this did remind me quite a lot of Ballerina Farm. There are so many examples online of, like, the type of influencers that Natalie is. But again, I don't think we sort of, you know, it was just like, you know, an exercise of, like, sort of making fun of the character, but also trying to give commentary on feminism and, like, women and all that, and it didn't really, I think, land in some parts. Basically, that's my thought. But yes, read the book. Let me know what you think. These are my thoughts. Again, nothing set in stone. My ideas, again, change quite frequently because I read so many different things about this book, and I'm constantly reevaluating what I'm thinking about. But yes. Now, word to the sponsor, then song of the week, and I'll, you know, give you some new songs, you know, to listen to and to, you know, enjoy, hopefully, for the upcoming week. See you in a second. You know what's very funny? I seem to be craving coffee quite a lot, but coffee doesn't seem to be wanting me, you know? It doesn't love me back. Like, I usually drink a cup of coffee and it doesn't really hit me. It just doesn't do the job. I'm just, like, you know, wondering what the hell did I just drink? And that's why I wanted to tell you guys about Savorista Coffee, because this is, like, the only coffee at the moment that matters, to me at least. They make premium craft decaf and half-calf coffee that actually tastes like real coffee, not that sad watered down decaf people have been settling for forever. They use high altitude Arabica beans that are handpicked, ethically sourced from places like Colombia, Ethiopia, Rwanda, and then naturally decaffeinated using water or sugarcane based processes instead of harsh chemicals. So you keep all those rich flavors without all the caffeine overload. And they've got also blends like Colombian inspiration with chocolate, caramel, citrus notes, darker roast like Total Eclipse, plus fun flavors like bourbon pecan and minted mocha. If you're feeling just a little bit fancy, you know, and if you're not feeling ready for full decaf, they also have half calf blends that, like, will give you just enough of a boost without making you feel like you accidentally drank rocket fuel. It's perfect if you're trying to sleep better, cut back on caffeine, or just if you want to enjoy a cup of coffee after dinner without regretting your life choices after that. I've also arranged the highest exclusive discount they offer for my listeners. You just have to go on savorista.com and use my promo code Overshare Pamphlet to get 25% off your order. That's the best discount they offer anywhere. So again, it's savorista.com and use my promo code Overshare Pamphlet. And I do earn a commission, just so you know. If you use my code, you will be also supporting basically the podcast. So thank you for sponsoring us. So I just realized right now that this is the last addition to the June playlist, because this is the last episode of June 2026. So you can find the songs that I'm going to talk about briefly in the playlist of the month for June 2026 on Spotify. So just search the Overshare Pamphlet Songs of the Week July 2026. and they'll be right there just for you to listen to them. So yeah, these are the few songs that I've added to the playlist this week. First off, we have to talk about Ryan Beatty's Sweet Fortune, the album. Incredible return from Ryan Beatty. I mean, you could, if you remember correctly, I also talked about it at the beginning of the month with A Secret Language's first offering from this album. I have 2 new songs to talk about from this album that came out. Sweet Fortune, the actual title track, incredible ballad. You can hear the Caro influence in this track quite a lot. I think this sounds like a song that could be on Charm by Caro, and I think she is giving also the background vocals. I could be wrong. I tried to look for it and I couldn't really find it at the moment, but she's partially the writer for this song apparently, but also, yeah, she did give background vocals. I'm right. Yeah, yes, it just feels so Caro. I can't. It's just really good. It's a very slow tempo song, to be honest. There's not much of a rhythm, like in terms of like a beat, like a fast beat. If you like slower songs, maybe this is not for you, but I loved it. It's such a good track, such a good song, and it's just, you know, Ryan Beatty and Caro together. That's just like incredible. What a combo, honestly. I do really like this one. The writing here is just very specific as well. I really like it. It's like almost like a confession, basically. That's how I would describe it in a way. It's like, you know, I think it's sort of like slowly falling in love with someone, basically. That's like what I'm getting sort of from the song. Be good to me, don't say what you don't mean, deep red, cheap pink, pour me another one before the words pour out of me. I'll sleep, I'll hide to keep you in my life, I'll dream, I'll lie to keep you on my side. So it's like, you know, slowly falling in love with this person and trying to do everything to keep them on your side. Let it all reveal what I always feel, sweet fortune. Got a wish on you tonight, believe in me, my soul for your seed. Yeah, so it's that. It's definitely that. I really like this. His vocal performance is so good. After Calico, I was like, you know what, it's gonna be great. He found his rhythm, and he sure did. And then we also have White Lightning, which is also a fave from the album. Really good. You know, I think this was one of the more acclaimed songs as well. White Lightning has been, you know, I think The Guardian really liked this one specifically when they made a review for Sweet Fortune, the album. They call it a soul-tinged highlight, twisting classic songwriting into something new. Very true. Like, it's just so nice. And the production here is like sort of almost jazzy in a way. There's some like interesting production here. It also, the chord progression sort of reminds me of the new Taylor Swift song, like I knew it, I know you, I knew it, I knew you. I'm getting confused with the Gracie Abrams song. There's just some parts of the song that really remind me of that in terms of chord progression. But again, these two are like some incredible songs that came out of this album. I really recommend listening to them if you feel like listening to something a bit more mellow and relaxing and just mesmerizing. Honestly, it's just like so good. Then I have another song by a very important artist, Gracie Abrams, Look at My Life. This is the second single from their upcoming album, Daughter from Hell. And yeah, Look at My Life, Daughter from Hell seems to be like a lot about her very poor mental state while being in a relationship. It's very interesting. I think I'm very curious to see how she navigates that, because she's still very publicly with like Paul Mescal, of course, but even the first song that we got was quite interesting in terms of that. But this song is so fun. It's co-produced by Aaron Dessner and Dan Nigro, I think, which is so fun. I cannot really tell this is a Dan Nigro song, which is very interesting, because usually all the other artists he produces for, it does sound like his production, but I guess because Aaron Dessner is on this one, it just feels new. So good. I just love, like, the thing is about the song is that I don't find it that innovative writing wise, if that makes any sense. I really like the catchiness of it, but also the ad libs here are insane, so good. You know, especially at the end, the last chorus, like in between the bridge and the chorus, it's just like, you know, it's just insane. She just gives it her all, which is so good. But yeah, it's sort of like, you know, her reflecting her own life, and just, you know, like you could see from the outside like she could have it all, but like, you know, you wouldn't notice that she's actually deeply unwell inside, by several different things, by attending these events surrounded by people that, you know, are quite alienating as well, but also just her being in a very poor state and being afraid of, like, you know, being also negative to her parent, to her partner, is just really interesting. But yes, I really like it. It's very catchy. It's a very catchy pop song. I really like it. Like, I've been listening to it non-stop today, especially for that final chorus. Just explodes so well. And then last but not least, my queen, Carly Rae Jepsen. Oh my god, guys, this is like, if you know me, if you know anything about me, my friends know about this about me. I'm obsessed with Carly Rae Jepsen, and to have been on a drought for so long and to receive finally news about the album that is coming out now in September. Actually, I don't know the date, so it's coming out in September, sometime in September, but it's a double album, 26 songs, day and night, and apparently the day and the night part are like supposed to sound different. It's all a single album technically, but it's double in terms of how the vibe shifts. So the first half is like more like this first song that we got on Wires, and the other half is supposed to be more like synth pop, which is to me like, you know, the bread and butter of Carly Rae Jepsen, and how she is the architect of pop music. But On Wires is such an interesting track production wise, as well as it's like almost like rock element to it. It's such an interesting song. And yeah, as I said, like the On Wires song sits on the day side of the Carly Rae Jepsen double album. You know, the first half, which also I think said that it's more like instrumental heavy, like more instrumental live instruments and 70s inspired psychedelic pop, and definitely you can tell from this song. It's so good. Like, you know, Carly Rae produced this one, and you know, it's her very close-knit producer team, so I definitely would recommend this just because, like, you know, massive event for me specifically, but also I think to have Carly Rae Jepsen come back is just insane. I'm waiting to see if she's going to release one other track from the night side. I'll be so interested to see what that sounds like. This is also pretty cool. I really like the song. It's very new, it's very different. There's just like very screaming chorus that is very cool. So unlike anything she's done before. So, but also at the same time it seems familiar. I can't really tell why. Maybe because it's the same team that worked on it. So good. And with that being said, with this great news of Carly Rae Jepsen coming back, listen to these songs and have a great day. Have a great week. If you're listening to this, if you just started a week, have a great rest of the week, and I'll see you in the next episode. A new episode, first episode of July. Crazy.